The martini is two ingredients, gin, vermouth, and yet it has started more arguments than almost any drink in history. The origin is still disputed. One story places it at the Occidental Hotel in San Francisco in the 1880s. Another puts it at the Knickerbocker Hotel in New York City. What we do know is that by the early 1900s, it had already conquered American bar culture, cold, clear, and uncompromising. Here's how it's actually made. You stir gin and dry vermouth over ice for about 30 seconds, then strain it into a chilled coupe or V-shaped glass. That's it. The key word is stirred, not shaken. James Bond's method, shaken, not stirred, actually bruises the gin, introduces air bubbles, and dilutes the drink faster. It's cinematic. It's also wrong. What makes the martini unique is what it doesn't have. No juice, no sweetener, no soda, just spirit and vermouth, cold enough to almost hurt. After dilution, a properly made martini lands around 28 to 30% ABV. The vermouth ratio is everything. The classic sits at 2 parts gin to 1 part vermouth. Modern bars often push to 6 to 1 or skip vermouth entirely, which is technically just cold gin in a fancy glass. Culturally, the martini became the American symbol of power and sophistication. Mad Men, Wall Street, the entire mythology of the mid-century businessman, Franklin D. Roosevelt mixed martinis at the White House during World War II. He also reportedly added olive brine, making it dirty, which coincidentally is the surprising fact here. The dirty martini, now ordered millions of times a week, was popularized by a sitting U.S. president who everyone agreed made terrible ones. The old-fashioned, if the martini is American sophistication, the old-fashioned is American history poured into a glass. The first written definition of a cocktail appeared in a newspaper called The Balance in 1806. The definition: spirit, sugar, water, bitters. That's an old-fashioned. The drink predates its own name. By the late 1800s, bartenders had started adding soda, fruit, and syrups to cocktails. Customers who wanted the original recipe had to ask for it the old-fashioned way. The phrase became the name. That's not a theory, that's exactly how it happened. To make it, you muddle a sugar cube or small amount of simple syrup with Angostura bitters and a splash of water at the bottom of a rocks glass. Add your whiskey, bourbon, or rye, then place 1 large ice cube in the glass and stir gently. Finish by expressing an orange peel over the surface, running it around the rim and dropping it in. That large ice cube is an aesthetic. It melts slowly, controlling dilution. A smaller cube or crushed ice would water down the drink in minutes. The engineering matters. Bourbon gives you sweet vanilla and caramel. Rye pushes into spice and black pepper. The bitters, just 2 or 3 dashes, tie everything together. They're flavor glue, not the main ingredient. The old-fashioned nearly disappeared from American bars by the 1990s. Then Mad Men premiered in 2007, and Don Draper ordered one in the first episode. Bourbon sales in the U.S. rose steadily for the next decade. One fictional character revived an entire industry. Compared to a Manhattan, also whiskey, also bitters, the old-fashioned uses sugar while a Manhattan uses sweet vermouth and is served up rather than on ice. Same DNA, very different result. The margarita, Americans order over 185,000 margaritas every single hour. It is the most popular cocktail in the United States, and nobody agrees on who invented it. The two main origin stories: Dallas socialite Margarita Sames claims she invented it at her Acapulco villa in 1948 for a group of celebrity friends. Restaurant owner Carlos Danny Herrera says he created it in 1938 at his Tijuana bar for actress Marjorie King, who was allergic to all spirits except tequila. Both stories are credible. Neither is proven. The margarita doesn't care, it won anyway. The recipe: tequila, fresh lime juice, and triple sec or Cointreau, shaken hard over ice and strained into a glass with a salted rim. The salt isn't decoration. Sodium chemically suppresses bitterness, which makes the lime taste brighter and the tequila smoother. It's flavor science, not tradition. Blanco tequila is sharp and agave-forward, you taste the plant. Reposado, aged in oak barrels for 2 to 12 months, adds softness and a whisper of vanilla. Frozen margaritas dilute more and read sweeter, great for heat, harder to balance. The frozen margarita machine was invented in 1971 by Dallas restaurateur Mariano Martinez, who repurposed a soft-serve ice cream motor to handle high-volume orders. That original machine is now on display at the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C. A bartender's improvisation became a national artifact. Culturally, Jimmy Buffett's 1977 song Margaritaville turned the margarita from a cocktail into a lifestyle, a whole identity built around beach chairs, sunshine, and not having a care in the world. The margarita is structurally identical to a daiquiri, just swap rum for tequila and lime for lime, and you have the same sour framework in a completely different cultural universe. The Negroni: 3 ingredients, equal parts, one of the most balanced cocktails ever built. Florence, Italy, 1919. Count Camillo Negroni walked into Caf Cassoni and asked bartender Fosco Scarselli to strengthen his Americano, a mix of Campari, sweet vermouth, and soda water. He wanted gin instead of soda. Scarselli obliged. The Count had no idea he'd just created a drink that would outlast him by over a century. The Negroni is stirred, never shaken. Equal parts gin, Campari, and sweet vermouth over ice, stirred until cold and silky, about 30 seconds. Strained over a large ice cube garnished with an orange peel expressed over the glass. The orange oil hits the surface and changes everything. Campari's deep red bitterness comes from gentian root, the same botanical used in digestive medicines for centuries. The company has been making it since 1860. The full recipe contains 68 botanicals, and Campari has never confirmed a single one publicly. The formula is one of the most protected secrets in the drinks world. The Negroni is technically an aperitivo, a before-dinner drink. That's not arbitrary. Bitterness triggers the release of digestive enzymes, stimulating appetite. The drink was designed by biology before it was designed by a bartender. The Boulevardier is the American cousin, same 1:1 ratio, same architecture, but bourbon replaces gin. Warmer, richer, less botanical. Negroni Week, a global charitable event tied to the drink, raised over $4.5 million for nonprofits between 2013 and 2023. A single cocktail funding the world. The daiquiri, not the slushy neon-red version at the beach resort. The real daiquiri is 3 ingredients: rum, fresh lime juice, sugar, shaken until perfectly cold and served in a chilled coupe. It is elegantly simple and brutally unforgiving of bad technique. It was invented in 1898 in a small Cuban mining town called Daiquiri. American engineer Jennings Cox was entertaining guests during the Spanish-American War and ran out of gin. He had local rum, limes, and sugar. He shook them together. A cocktail was born. The ratio is the secret: 2 parts white rum, 1 part fresh lime juice, 3/4 part simple syrup. Too much lime and it bites, too much sugar and it goes flat. Shake it hard, longer than most cocktails, to fully integrate the acid and get it cold enough. Double strain through a fine mesh to remove ice shards. White rum gives you clean, bright sugarcane flavor. Aged rum, dark, oaky, vanilla forward, shifts the drink into warmer, dessert-like territory. Ernest Hemingway drank multiple daiquiris daily at El Floridita in Havana, and had them make his with double rum and no sugar, the Papa Double, which is basically a Hemingway stress test. JFK was also a daiquiri drinker, reportedly a frequent order at the White House throughout his presidency. 2 of America's most iconic figures, one drink. The gimlet shares the same architecture, spirit, citrus, sweetener, but uses gin and was originally made with preserved lime cordial created for British Royal Navy sailors in the 1800s to prevent scurvy. Same template, different ocean. The whiskey sour. The first written recipe for a whiskey sour appeared in 1862 in Jerry Thomas's Bartender's Guide, the book that essentially codified American cocktail culture. The drink hasn't changed much since. That's the point. Bourbon, fresh lemon juice, simple syrup shaken with ice and served either straight up or over ice. Add an egg white and everything changes. The egg white technique requires a dry shake first. Shake all the ingredients without ice to emulsify the protein. Then add ice and shake again. This 2-stage process builds a dense, stable foam that floats on top and doesn't collapse within seconds. It's science, not flair. Here's what the egg white does not do: add flavor. It contributes zero taste. What it adds is mouthfeel, velvety, thick, cloud-like. When a bartender draws Angostura bitters in a pattern on the foam, it's not performance. The bitters actually penetrate slightly, adding aromatic complexity to the first sip. High rye bourbon cuts through the lemon more sharply. A wheat-forward bourbon like Maker's Mark softens the whole thing. Without egg white, the whiskey sour is brighter and thinner. Some people prefer it that way, and that preference is valid. The whiskey sour is one of the most searched cocktail recipes in the U.S. every single year. It is the gateway drug for millions of Americans into whiskey drinking, approachable enough for beginners, deep enough for obsessives. The Pisco Sour runs the same framework: spirit, citrus, sweetener, egg white, but uses Pisco, a South American grape brandy, and lime instead of lemon. It's the national drink of both Peru and Chile, and both countries will fight you over who owns it. The Mojito White Rum. Fresh lime, mint, sugar, soda, water. 5 ingredients that somehow became the most recognized cocktail in the world. The origin traces back further than most people expect, to 16th century Cuba, when a drink called El Drac was made from aguardiente, mint, lime, and sugar by Sir Francis Drake's crew, who used it to treat dysentery during Caribbean raids. The modern version with white rum solidified in 1940s Havana. The technique is delicate. You muddle the mint gently with sugar and lime juice, press, don't shred. Tearing the leaves releases chlorophyll, which turns the drink green and bitter. Then add rum and ice, top with soda, and stir just enough to combine. Never shake a mojito. Bruised mint is ruined mint. The mint aroma arrives before you taste anything, and that's by design. Olfaction accounts for roughly 80% of what we perceive as flavor. The mojito is engineered to smell refreshing before it tastes refreshing. Spearmint is the standard, it reads sweet and cool. Peppermint is sharper and more aggressive, almost medicinal. Most bars use spearmint specifically to avoid that heat. Dark rum instead of white shifts the whole drink, heavier, molasses-rich, less bright. The mojito's American explosion happened in the early 2000s, driven partly by Latin music's pop crossover, partly by its appearance in Bad Boys II in 2003. Orders in U.S. bars quadrupled between 2000 and 2006. Then the bartenders got tired of muddling them during rush hour and the attitude toward the drink changed, but the orders didn't. The Espresso Martini London, 1983. A young model walked into the Soho Brasserie and asked bartender Dick Bradsell for something to wake me up and then mess me up. He grabbed vodka, pulled a fresh espresso shot, added Kahlua, and shook it over ice. The espresso martini was born in under 2 minutes. It's not a martini by any classical definition. It doesn't contain gin or vermouth, and it isn't stirred. The name is a marketing artifact of the 1980s, when martini became shorthand for anything in a V-shaped glass. But the drink is real, and in the 2020s it became the most talked about cocktail on earth. The technique matters. Shake vodka, fresh hot espresso, and coffee liqueur hard over ice. The temperature contrast between the hot espresso and the cold ice, combined with vigorous agitation, creates the signature 3-bubble foam crown that floats on top. That foam is the signature, the proof of a well-made drink. Cold brew works but produces far less crema and a flatter result. The caffeine is real. One espresso martini contains roughly 60 to 80 milligrams of caffeine. That's the same as a Red Bull. You are drinking a cocktail that will simultaneously relax and stimulate you, which is exactly what the original customer asked for. The drink went dormant for nearly 3 decades after its invention. Then TikTok happened. In 2021, a wave of espresso martini content went viral, and by 2022 it was the most ordered cocktail in the US, overtaking the margarita in several major markets. 30-year-old drinks can go viral. Dick Bradsell never patented it, never collected a royalty, and died in 2016, years before the drink he invented became a global phenomenon. The Black Russian 1949 and White Russian 1965 predate it with the same flavor DNA, vodka, coffee liqueur, dairy in the white version, same territory. No foam, no moment, no tick-tock. Sometimes the difference between a forgotten drink and a cultural obsession is just a shaker and the right timing.